Okay, so I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a pigsty. A messy, muddy, but really lively place. There are 10 pigs inside, and they are not just waiting for food. They're having a debate. A deeply serious, incredibly heated debate about the meaning of life.
A philosophical pigsty. I mean, I'm already hooked. That sounds like a fable.
It is, and it's a brilliant one. So the first perspective comes from this old, weary pig. He's seen it all, and he looks at the others and just says, look, stop overthinking it. Life is meaningless. We eat, we sleep, we suffer a bit, and we die. That's it. Enjoy the slop.
The nihilist pig.
A classic. But then a really vigorous male pig, full of energy, he interrupts. He says, you're missing the point entirely, old man. The meaning of life is mating. It's passing on our genes. That's it.
The biological imperative, yeah, hard to argue with that.
Right. But then a little piglet, just bouncing with joy, squeals, you're both wrong. The meaning of life is playing with my brothers and sisters. It's about love and fun.
So you have three distinct worldviews right there in the mud. Nihilism, biology, and hedonism. And the thing is, if you're inside that pigsty, all three are perfectly valid arguments.
They are. Those are your only options. But here's the twist that sets up our entire deep dive today. The camera pulls back. We stop looking at the pigs, and we start looking through the eyes of the farmer. He's just leaning on the fence, watching this whole debate.
Okay.
And he's thinking, you guys are hilarious. You think your life is about playing or mating. Your purpose is to get fat so I can turn you into bacon.
Wow, that is a dark perspective shift.
Isn't it?
But it instantly invalidates everything the pigs believe about their own lives. Their whole internal logic is just crushed by an external reality.
And it doesn't stop there. The camera pulls back further. Now we see a Buddha watching the farmer. And the Buddha thinks, you think you're just raising food, but really, by killing them, you're creating heavy karma. You're trapping yourself in a cycle of suffering.
The metaphysical layer.
And then finally, the ultimate zoom out. A voice booms from the sky.
The God perspective.
The voice says, as pigs, you are paying off debts from a past life. Once you pay this debt, you can become human again. That is the actual meaning of your life.
And just like that, the whole bacon purpose and the mating purpose are revealed to be these tiny, tiny parts of a much larger invisible mechanism.
This parable is the hook for the collection of writings we are unpacking today. We're looking at the works of an author named Xue Feng, who, well, he sometimes writes under the pen name Hundun Yuanchu. And I have to say, this is one of the most eclectic, radical, and challenging deep dives we've ever done.
Eclectic is definitely putting it mildly. I mean, we are looking at a worldview that blends metaphysics, a very specific, and I want to stress, non-Marxist type of communism, and some incredibly sharp futurism about AI.
So the mission for this deep dive is to explore a perspective that really challenges everything. How we define value, why we suffer, and why this author believes things like nations, families, and even money are about to become obsolete.
Right. It's a framework that argues humanity is standing on a cliff edge. We're at a point where we either go through this massive spiritual purification or we get weeded out.
So let's go back to those pigs for a second. The core argument here isn't about farming. It's about who gets to define meaning.
And this brings us to the first big concept, the hierarchy of meaning. The source makes this really provocative statement that sets the ground rules for everything else. A lower-level life form cannot define its own meaning.
Which is a hard pill to swallow, right?
Yeah.
We live in the era of, I create my own truth. I am the captain of my soul.
Exactly. And Xu Feng argues that's a total illusion. He uses the analogy of a smartphone. Think about the phone in your pocket right now. Does that phone know its purpose?
No. It's just glass and metal. It has no idea it exists to help us record this deep dive.
Right. Only the creator or the user knows its purpose. If the phone tried to define its own purpose, it might decide its job is just to get hot while charging. Or take crops. Wheat doesn't know it's food. Only the farmer assigns that value.
So the argument is that if we humans try to define our own meaning, like, my purpose is to get rich, we're just like that pig thinking life is all about mating.
Precisely. You're confusing your biological drives with your actual function in the universe. The author says humans can't know their own meaning in isolation. It has to be defined by the creator. If you don't get that, you're just rolling in the mud.
It's a humbling thought. It sort of strips away our agency. But if we accept that premise, that we're supposed to align with a higher purpose, we run right into a problem. Reality.
The unfairness of reality.
Exactly. If there's this grand design, why is life so messy? Why is it so unfair? The sources give these brutal examples in a section called The Ledger of Life.
And they really address that feeling of efforts going to waste. He lists things like parents who sacrifice everything for a child, only for that child to grow up and abandon them.
Or the general who saves his country
Yeah.
and then, because of politics, gets executed as a traitor.
Or the one that I think makes everyone's blood boil.
Yeah.
You see a stranger fall, you rush to help them, and they sue you.
That's the one that breaks people. You try to be good, you try to be virtuous, and you get punished. The text asks the question we all ask. Is this effort wasted? Was I just a sucker?
This is where he introduces a very different kind of accounting. He says, do not calculate the ledger yourself.
Do not calculate. That goes against every human instinct. We're transactional. I do this, you do that. I work, I get paid.
But he argues that's the Pigsty game. He says, if you have virtue, you shouldn't regret it, even if the result is bad. His view is that everything returns to you, but, and this is the key, not necessarily from the person you helped.
So the return isn't direct. I shouldn't expect the person I helped to pay me back.
Right. It returns through what he calls the Tao, the universal arrangement. If you help the stranger and they sue you, you don't look at that one interaction as a loss. You trust that the universe has balanced the books somewhere else.
There was one specific image in the text about this that really stuck with me. It was about a mudslide.
Yes. It's a very striking visual. He writes, even a mudslide rushing down like a beast will pause for 16 seconds for a virtuous person.
16 seconds. It's so specific, isn't it? Not a minute, not a while, 16.
It is, but I think the specificity is the point. It implies a mechanism, a precision. It's a metaphor for the idea that reality itself has a kind of consciousness, and it recognizes virtue. It bends slightly to protect you.
So the goal isn't to get a thank you. The goal is to reach a state of no self, where you're just radiating virtue, because that's what aligns you with the POW. You're playing the long game.
Exactly. And he warns that calculating your own ledger, I did X, so I deserve Y, is what blocks that protection. It keeps you trapped in petty, human-level cause and effect.
It's a beautiful philosophy, really. But I can hear people listening right now saying, that's great, but I have a mortgage. Being virtuous doesn't pay the rent. And the author doesn't dodge that. In fact, his background is surprisingly gritty.
It is not what you'd expect from a spiritual philosopher.
No. Usually you imagine a guy on a misty mountain, But Zhu Feng, looking at his bio, he was a driller,
Oh, driller.
a mechanic, a middle school teacher, and then, this is the wild part, a business owner in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, running a roast chicken shop, a bar, a nightclub. I mean, he's been in the trenches of small business.
And that experience is crucial to his philosophy.
Yeah.
He says when he was trying to build a business, the biggest obstacle wasn't capital. It wasn't finding customers.
No. He says the hardest thing to find was honest people.
Which leads to his theory on unemployment. He makes this incredibly bold claim: I can never be unemployed, even if I live to be 180.
And he offers 3 keys to this immunity. He believes if you have these 3 traits, the world will always have a place for you.
Okay, let's break these down. Key number 1.
Creation. He argues that humans, unlike animals, are designed to create. He actually has a hot take on Adam and Eve. He says they just consumed what was in Eden. They were freeloaders. We need to be better than that.
So creation isn't just doing a job, it's making something new.
Correct. If you are a creator, you always have work. If you are just a laborer moving a box from A to B or just consuming, you're vulnerable.
Okay, creation. Makes sense. What's number 2?
Contribution, or more specifically, giving. But giving without calculating the loss. It ties back to the ledger. He says if you're the type of person who serves others without checking the scoreboard, you become magnetic.
Because you're an asset to everyone around you. Everyone wants you on their team because they know you aren't trying to rip them off.
Exactly. You become indispensable.
And the 3rd?
Honesty. And he is very strict on this. He says, you must keep your contracts even if, and I love this quote, you lose your underpants.
Lose your underpants.
I mean-
It's vivid. You go broke rather than break your word.
He believes that smart people often try to cut corners to save a buck, but he argues that stupid honesty is actually the highest intelligence. Because once people know your word is iron, trust becomes the ultimate currency.
This focus on honesty and creation isn't just self-help, though. It connects directly to his predictions about the future, specifically about artificial intelligence.
This is the pivot point. He predicts that AI and robots are going to wipe out a huge chunk of the workforce. Accountants, lawyers, drivers, laborers.
We hear that all the time. But his conclusion is harsher than most. He doesn't say learn to code.
No, he definitely doesn't. He says that in an AI world, humans who only consume resources or do repetitive tasks are becoming superfluous. He actually uses the word trash in the context of resource consumption.
Trash. That is a brutal word.
It's meant to shock. The logic is, if a robot can do the labor better, faster, and cheaper, then the human who defines themselves by that labor has zero utility. The only value a human has left is spiritual wealth and creativity.
So if you're just a biological robot doing a routine job, eating, sleeping, you're obsolete.
Yes. You're a useless eater in the eyes of the planet. Job security in the future isn't about learning a new software. It's about spiritual utility. It's about being a creator and a giver. Things AI cannot inherently be.
So we're facing this economic cliff. But the author doesn't just say, good luck. He proposes a complete, radical overhaul of civilization. And I mean, he wants to tear it all down.
This is his new era segment. He lists things that will become obsolete, just like horse-drawn carriages, and the list is comprehensive.
It's wild. He says nations and borders, gone. Relegated to museums.
Right. He argues they just restrict the flow of resources and create conflict.
Marriage and traditional families, gone.
This is a big one. He sees the nuclear family as a selfish unit that encourages hoarding resources for your people. He wants to dissolve that so everyone cares for everyone.
Political parties, religions, currency, billionaires, all eliminated.
It sounds like chaos or maybe a very intense form of communism, but he explicitly critiques the systems we know.
Yeah, let's clarify that, because when people hear this, they think Marxism. But he calls his system Xu Feng-style communism and says it's totally different. What's his beef with the current systems?
He argues that socialism historically leads to collective poverty. It might make the species last longer, but everyone's poor.
And capitalism.
Capitalism brings wealth, but it burns through the Earth's resources so fast it shortens humanity's lifespan. He calls it a form of suicide.
And military rule is just barbaric. So what's the alternative? What does this second home actually look like?
Picture a global community, no private property, but also, and this is the really tricky part, no government laws.
Like no laws?
No police, no courts, no constitutions. He wants to replace them with something called the 800 concepts for new era humans.
How do you run a society with concepts? If I steal your bike, you don't call the police, you just read me a concept.
That's the proposal. The idea is that laws are just external cages for wild animals. If you upgrade the human software, the consciousness, you don't need the external hardware.
So if everyone is virtuous, you don't need a law against theft because no one would even think to steal.
Correct. But he admits, and this is crucial, you can't just put current humans into this system. They'd tear it apart in a day. That's why he stresses spiritual purification. Your consciousness has to enter the new era before your body does.
It sounds completely utopian. But he claims to have tested this for over 15 years in these second home communities. Communal living, shared resources, the whole world is one family.
It's really a reaction to the isolation of the modern world. He points out that paradox. We have smartphones, instant communication, but we are lonelier than we've ever been.
That part rings so true. Hyper-connected but totally isolated.
He says we're spending more time with virtual information than with real people. So his solution is to break down the walls of the private home and force us into a broader community.
It's a lot to process. We started with pigs in a pen, and now we're talking about dissolving nations and living in a lawless but virtuous global commune.
It's a heavy lift. It requires a complete rewiring of how we see the world. But if you connect the dots, there is a consistent thread running through all of it.
Let's try to synthesize that thread because we've covered a lot of ground.
Okay, so step one, the hierarchy of meaning. We have to accept we're not the masters of the universe. We're part of a bigger system, like the pigs on the farm. We don't get to set the rules.
Step two,
the ledger of life. Because we're part of a system, our job is to align with the Tao through virtue and honesty. That's our survival strategy. It's how you get that 16-second pause in the mudslide.
And step three,
the future context. Because AI is taking away our material utility, our ability to just work for a living, we have to pivot to our spiritual utility. We have to become creators and contributors, or we risk becoming that trash that gets weeded out by the planet.
He paints a really stark picture of a cliff edge. He says previous civilizations went extinct because they couldn't make this jump. They got too corrupt, and nature, or the creator, just hit the reset button.
And he's warning that we are at that point again. The choice he presents is spiritual purification or extinction. It's not about politics. It's about evolution.
It is a heavy message. It definitely makes you look at your own daily grind a little differently. It challenges the whole metric of success we've been taught.
It certainly does. It asks you to look at your life not as a career ladder, but as a spiritual test.
So here is the question for you, listening right now. We live in an age where AI can write code, create art, and manage spreadsheets better than you can. Your skills, the things you put on your resume, are becoming less unique every single day.
And your virtual interactions are replacing your face-to-face ones.
Exactly. So where are you placing your bets? Are you investing more in your material resume, your job title, your bank account? Or are you investing in your spiritual resume, your creativity, your honesty, your ability to contribute without asking what's in it for you?
Because if this source is right, and the economy of the future is based on virtue rather than labor, how would your net worth look today?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.